I want to thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Andrew Gilmore, and I'm the Sales Supervisor here at Disability Insurance Services. Today's presentation is all about selling DI to the federal marketplace. When I talk to agents, most agents ask me about federal employees. Is it worth it to sell disability insurance to them? I mean, they already have good DI coverage from the government, right? Well, my question back to them is, do they really actually have good coverage? I think federal employees are a great market for disability insurance, and today's presentation will explain why they are. Before I get started, I want to mention that if you have questions during today's presentation, there is a box in the bottom right-hand corner. Feel free to type those in, and I will get to those at the end of the presentation. So let's get going on this. Why sell individual disability insurance to federal employees? That's the major question of today's presentation. Well, I think there are a lot of myths out there about the coverage available to these employees. I will tell you that they do actually have disability coverage. This coverage is offered through their retirement package. We call this the FERS, or Federal Employee Retirement System. The fact is that despite offering DI, the FERS has major gaps when associated to disability. I think that the first major gap or hurdle is that you're only eligible for FERS disability coverage if you've worked at least 18 months for the government. So I say, what about new hires? Are they eligible for any disability coverage? Unfortunately, no, they aren't eligible. So this is the first great market for federal employees. Talk to new hires. They aren't eligible for the next 18 months. They need disability coverage. Let's talk about the second hurdle or second major hurdle in the FERS program. Let's say you have a federal worker who has been with the government for over 18 months and then becomes disabled. What does the coverage look like? Well, I'll tell you. There's a mandatory 6-month wait before coverage kicks in. I guess they want the client to exhaust sick pay and vacation time at that point. When they do pay out the benefits, the benefit will only cover 60% of their income. Now, that might seem a lot like an individual disability policy, but unlike disability policies that you can sell them, the benefit amount provided by the FERS program is taxable. That's a taxable benefit amount, so it's not really 60% if it's taxable. Plus, that 60% of coverage only lasts 1 year. What if a disability is longer than 1 year? Statistics show us that the average long-term disability lasts 35 months. That's from the Social Security Administration. So it's going to be very likely that it lasts more than 1 year. Well, I'll tell you that the FERS changes the benefit amount on the client. At that point, if it's longer than 1 year, only 40% of the client's income can be covered. That, too, will be taxable. So I ask you, does that sound very good? I don't think so. To further illustrate this, I put together this nice chart that DIS actually makes available to any of our agents. So feel free to go and download this on our website, and we will be emailing this out afterward as well. But it's a great chart, and it's an example of a federal employee. So let's take a look at this example and timeline that I put together. Say we have a federal employee making $60,000. That's represented in the top left-hand corner. Let's say he makes $5,000 a year, and after taxes, his take-home pay is around $5,000 a month, and after taxes, his monthly net income is around $3,750. Let's say this client has a stroke, totally disabled. Well, he's going to have to wait that 180-day wait or 6-month waiting period that the FERS will require him, after which they will pay benefits. Now, the benefits, if a federal employee asks you, it is retroactive back to day 1, which sounds good, but let's actually examine the numbers. After taxes, the net annual income for the year will only be $27,000. That's in that second red box there. So after 1 year, their take-home pay is only $27,000. That amounts to around $2,250 per month. That's not that great. Like I had mentioned in the previous slide, after 1 year, the benefit amount drops off to 40%. So let's examine those numbers. The numbers indicate that for this client making $60,000 originally, after 1 year, the income's only going to be net of $18,000 annually. So this client went from making $60,000 of pre-disability earnings down to $18,000. Now here's a question I want you to ask your federal employee clients. Can you survive on 40% of your income? I think if you ask someone that question, the answer inevitably is going to be no. This particular example of an employee will end up depleting his life savings and probably be dependent on his family until he or she can recover, which hopefully they do recover, because a lot of disabilities last a lifetime. So that's a great example. So seeing from that example, it's really eye-opening as to the major gaps and holes in the federal employee coverage. I truly believe they need supplemental DI coverage. So I want to tell you that DIS has several carriers on our platform that offer disability insurance to federal employees. On the left-hand side of the screen, we have our white-collar carriers. We have Standard, MetLife, and Principal. Great carriers, depending upon whether or not the clients are, maybe we have a federal doctor or a high-level federal employee. Well, with those three carriers, we can get up to $10,000 of coverage. So they will take into account the FERS program, so that will affect how much we can get. But think about that. If you have a federal doctor making upwards of $200,000 to $300,000 a year, Standard, Met, and Principal, we can get up to another $10,000 of coverage. So that's one thing to point out. If you have blue-collar federal employees or office workers, we have Illinois Mutual, Mutual of Omaha, and Assurity. All really strong carriers. I'll tell you, Assurity is great in the blue-collar marketplace. They don't care how old you are. They don't care how many years you've been in the federal government. They'll write you. Lastly, we have Lloyd's of London. Where does Lloyd's of London come in? Well, I like to use them for active military people. So whereas most people think that you can't get any disability insurance for active military, you can, but it's only for select occupations, like select professional occupations. Certainly your doctors, if you're a military doctor, we can get you coverage. If you're a lawyer, maybe you're in the Navy JAG program, we can get you coverage. So Lloyd's of London does offer coverage. We can do it on a monthly basis with certain military people. We can also take care of future earnings. So if you have a military doctor that might be doing his residency in the military and then plans on going into the private sector following his service, what happens if that client were to become disabled prior to going out in the private sector? Well, Lloyd's of London offers a future earnings clause where we can insure up to $500,000 of income, and they would receive that on a lump sum basis if the doctor deemed that this guy cannot be a doctor anymore for his life. So it's a great policy to have. So again, on the left-hand side, Standard, Met, and Principal, white-collar carriers, blue-collar carriers on the right with Illinois Mutual, Mutual of Omaha, and Assurity, and then specialty carrier with Lloyd's from the military. So we have a lot of options on our platform. Let's talk about the actual guidelines. Your clients have to be between ages 18 and 60. That's pretty standard. So really no limitations on the issue ages. The second point here, max years of service. That's really important. Some of our carriers are unlimited. They don't care how many years the client has been working for the federal government. Other carriers do care, and the cutoff is 10 years. We write a good deal of standard disability here at Disability Insurance Services. They're good in the white-collar market. They are one of those carriers that do care. If you have 10 more years of service, they're not going to write you. But Principal and MetLife, they don't care. So we do have other great options. Assurity, they don't care. Mutual of Omaha doesn't care. But there are some carriers out there that have limitations. So really, when you're talking to a federal employee, find out how many years they've been working for the federal government. We have short-term and long-term DI available. I mentioned earlier that the average disability lasts 35 months. After 1 year, federal employees will only be covered for 40% of their income, plus it's taxable. They need long-term disability. And so we have that on our platform. And if you are looking for short-term, we have that through Mutual of Omaha. So we can supplement that 60%. And remember, they have to wait 6 months. So short-term coverage might do them a lot of good. What do the contracts look like for federal employees? Well, they look very similar to private sector employees. We have non-cancelable and guaranteed renewable contracts, meaning the rates are locked in. On certain carriers, we can even offer true own occupation. And I mentioned that for our federal doctors. If you have any federal doctors, you can still offer them that great true own occ definition. So you have a federal doc that becomes disabled. Maybe he was a surgeon, can't perform surgery, but he can certainly go back and teach the theory of surgery at a medical school. Or if he was a cardiothoracic surgeon and had a great knowledge of the heart but couldn't perform surgery anymore, maybe he goes and becomes a cardiologist. That could be offered to a federal employee. So the contracts are pretty much the same. And then I get a lot of questions on mail carriers and law enforcement people as well as firefighters. All occupations that disability insurance services can insure. So, I mean, that's pretty much it. I want you to realize that the carriers are going to take the FERS program into question when they're issuing the benefit amount. And what I mean by that, they're going to limit the amount of benefit amount based on the fact that they do get 40% of coverage. But that's still, like I said, there's a huge gap there. I encourage you to write supplemental disability insurance for federal employees. Now, that's the end of this presentation. Like I said, the example chart for that person making $60,000 of income is available through our website, or you can give us a call at 800-898-9641. I'd be happy to send it your way. Here's a list of all of our offices, depending upon where you are. If you're in the Southwest, we have a Phoenix office. Feel free to call them. Midwest, Kansas City office. We have Texas and New England. Again, I encourage you to go to our website and look up the materials. We have great sales ideas on there. You can submit quotes on there. You can actually, if you have a case in underwriting, you can check your case status. So that's today's presentation. I'm looking to see if we have any questions right now. You know, there's no questions today, so I guess we had a pretty fluid presentation, but again, there are major gaps for federal employees, and who knows, with the changing atmosphere in Washington, who knows how long the federal employee marketplace will even have this disability coverage. So you might want to think about it in those terms. Let's get them supplemental coverage right now. Thanks again for joining me. My name is Andrew Gilmore. I'm the sales supervisor. If you have any questions, feel free to give me a call. Our phone number is 800-898-9641. Thanks again. Have a great day.